We've had hundreds of questions pouring in, and our first question tonight pretty much sums it up. It's from Asher O'Keefe in Toowong, Queensland. Cranky indeed. I want to get to the specifics of his situation in a moment, but Nick Coatsworth, can I start with you? Because this question of when does my school open, at this point in time, does not have a simple answer for any student in the country, does it?
Well, Hamish, firstly, thank you, Asher, very much for that question, because it is the one on everybody's lips. I will say that the health advice regarding school closures in COVID-19 has been consistent from the start, which has been that we think school closures have had a limited effect on the COVID-19 epidemic, and in actual fact that the advice has been for schools to remain open. Now, it is the reality that across the country a lot of students have been online learning, have not been in the classroom. But where we are now is in a position where every single jurisdiction is in varying degrees actually considering their approach to restarting face-to-face teaching. So whilst each jurisdiction is different, we can be clear at the moment that every jurisdiction is moving in that direction based on such a great job that Australians have done to control COVID-19.
Do you accept, though, that for students and for parents and for teachers, that consistency that you are claiming exists may not be apparent to them?
Yes, I do. I absolutely agree as a parent and as the Deputy Chief Medical Officer. When we see that different states are doing different things, that can send a confusing message. So we need to take a step back to the principle, which is that schools are safe places because children don't tend to get the disease as severely. They don't tend to transmit the disease as much as adults, and for whatever reason, COVID-19 appears to be a disease where we need to be most worried about adults in the workplace rather than children. So that advice has been consistent, and I think it's how each individual state and territory applies that's most important. Remembering that if you live in New South Wales, you need to look at what the New South Wales Education Minister and Premier are saying. Similar for South Australia, look at your South Australian Education Minister and Premier, because they're the people that are making decisions about your child's education.
Just to be clear though, Nick Coatsworth, you are saying that your message has been consistent all along, but as of April 16, the AHPPC's advice was that students should practice social distancing. That created a whole set of circumstances for every educational institution in the country. And then most recently on April 24, that advice has changed, saying that social distancing is no longer required.
So we've said that they're different things, Hamish. I think that the advice that schools are safe places has been consistent. The advice that social distancing is not entirely necessary and is also somewhat impractical to implement, particularly for younger children, that is updated advice from the Australian Health Protection Principal Committee. And so it's important not to give the impression of confusion, rather we are updating the advice based on the latest evidence. And we know now from New South Wales, their studies in particular, where they've had some 18 children infected, 9 children and 9 teachers with COVID-19, that it has not tended to spread within those schools. So the advice regarding the safety of schools certainly has stayed the same. The advice regarding what we practically do to make schools safer places has developed.
Leanne Davies, is it all clear and consistent from your perspective?
That's a challenging one. I do think it depends on which state you're in. Certainly being based in Victoria, I felt that the message we had in Victoria was very clear. We were given a very precise timeline and told that at the end of term 2 we would be continuing our remote learning until then. So I felt fairly confident in what we were planning for, but you only have to watch the news and to look at the stories that are coming out in the media. There are many different messages, I think, that are being communicated. They're not all all coming from medical experts, but there's lots of mixed messages out there about what's going on.
But hold on, even in your state where there was a clear message about term 2 being remote learning, the Chief Health Officer, Brett Sutton, is now saying it will only at this stage be at least until May 11, when Victoria's state of emergency lapses. It appears that maybe school face-to-face learning may return earlier than the end of term 2.
Potentially, but we're still waiting for that advice. As principals, we've been sent a lot of communication that has told us to plan until the end of term 2 and to ensure that we are able to do that. We were told that that would be revisited as the medical advice unfolds and that medical information unfolds. But for now, as far as I'm concerned, we plan for term 2. That's been fairly consistent. But it's just an unfolding situation. We really don't know how this is going to transpire.
Mark Scott, can you understand why so many people are confused?
Well, it's been moving quickly, Hamish, and I think that's one of the attributes of COVID-19. Things move very quickly on you. It's worth thinking back 5 weeks here in New South Wales. Within a 1-week period, we moved from 17% of children staying home to 41% of children staying home. And at that time, we were having up to 200 new cases in New South Wales diagnosed every day. Well, this morning it was 2. Last week there were days where it was only 5 or 6 new cases, a dramatic transformation. And so I think, 4 or 5 weeks ago, we may have all thought that term 2 and term 3 would have been periods where children could stay at home. Now we think we can do a lot better than that with the remarkable public adherence to the rules around social distancing. We think there's a good chance of getting our kids back into school this term. We're going to bring them back from the beginning of week 3.
Lisa, I want to bring you in here because Asher has a specific situation. He needs early education, Auslan teaching, and his mother has told us that she's actually concerned for his brain development, that without, at this early age, he's 3, having that face-to-face learning, he's actually going to be hindered for the rest of his life.
Well, we know that COVID-19 doesn't hit young people and children as much as it does. We didn't have the evidence until fairly recently. It's a good thing to get children back in school. The public health advice has been consistently to have children in school. And I think it's time that we had pragmatic discussions about what that means for children such as young Asher and his parents and his family and other kids like him.
Should they override the bigger health question?
It's not overriding the bigger health question, it's following the bigger health question. If the bigger health question and if the advice coming from the authorities says it's fine for children to go back to school, then that should occur. That should happen, it should happen straight away. Because we know that early development of a child in school with literacy and with learning, no matter what language it is critically important. It'll affect them for the rest of their lives. And this is an incident that's been ongoing now for some months. It's unlikely that we're going to be out of a COVID-type response for some time yet. So this is not something that's going to be over in a week or 2. This may well be something that might be over towards the end of the year with bumps throughout next year. So the earlier we get kids back into school, we can watch it carefully. We've got the facilities to be able to do that and deal with it.